Coming up on Small Town Charm, we got a guest. Who is this guy? If you're listening to the audio podcast, you're at a disadvantage because you have no idea who this guy might be, but you're going to find out shortly. If you're watching this, you probably know who this guy is, but he's our first guest ever. So tune in. We're going to talk about where money comes from in the government, like a 101 crash course, and why we just can't build roads, not density, and why that doesn't even make any sense anyway. All that's coming up on Small Town Charm. Welcome into Small Town Charm. It's a special episode because we got somebody else here. Where did you come from?
I just realized we should have do the WWE entrance where we play music.
Yeah.
We need Stone Cold.
Get your smoke machine, Daniel.
Oh yeah, I was gonna give you zip line in like Shawn
Or
Michaels.
just blur his face like when they do these interviews.
Yeah, I wish there was a close up that didn't involve like I don't have a close up camera, so we were giving it away. First shot. I should have leaned into like Mike's camera or something. We got former mayor Derek Adams here. And by the way, my name's Daniel. We got Mike. We got Chris here as well. So we're happy that all of us are here. We've got my cat in the background screaming, letting us know that she's here. But we're all happy that Derek's here. We're going to talk. He showed up.
This was not the plan.
No, he showed up and then we're like, here's what we're going to talk about. Yeah. So you're going to have to just talk about what we say. Yeah. But we thought we heard some feedback that our episodes kind of take for granted maybe some basic information about how local governments work. And so we thought maybe it'd be a good chance for us to discuss how does local government work. And the thing we talk about the most is, we talk probably the most about density and zoning and all that stuff. And I don't think that's kind of like burying the lead because like that stuff doesn't like on the surface really matter as much as what is underlying that, which is money and taxes and paying for the things that we all care about the most. At the end of the day, I don't really care if there's a Kroger across the street from me or not. It's pretty darn awesome that there is, but like if that didn't happen and we could get like a bunch of other things that we need around here, I'd be fine with that. I'd be okay with that. But there are a lot of other things that we need in this town that I think the best path to get those things is by having a Kroger across the street from my house. Just so happens. So
conflict of interest, Daniel.
Yeah, I know, right? At least I admit
you're
it.
Benefiting with convenience.
Yep, I'm not voting on anything. But so we thought we'd have an episode that just talks about where does money come from and in the government, and if we wanted to build roads and not density, what would that take? Why does density matter? Why does zoning matter? All this other stuff. So here we are, and look, we got Board of Commissioner Derek Adams.
Commissioner, yep.
Here with us, fresh off a day at Topgolf.
Yeah, so I saw these guys were recording an episode, and I tried to call in like a standard radio show. None of them answered, nope. But I was really looking forward to first time caller, long time listener. I'll hang up and listen. No one answered their phone, however. And then they said, "Come over." So here we are. That's how that happened.
You might see in the previous episode. There's a moment when like each of us are like
looking at
while someone else is talking.
Yeah.
And then I like show Mike. The text said, I was like, Derek, I was like, we're recording a podcast. What do you want? And he texted me back, and I like showed Mike, while Chris was talking. So we're glad you're here, though, Derek. We promise not to ask you. Well, no, I don't promise not to ask you hard questions.
Ask me anything.
Yeah.
AMA.
But where to start on this? So I think most people understand the basic idea of I pay taxes and that money goes into a big pool and then the government decides how to spend my taxes.
Right.
That makes sense, right? I think the place to start maybe is let's use the example of like Sunset Road 8 years ago, 6 years ago, somewhere in there. There were some parts that maybe needed to be improved about Sunset Road. The cost of that, let's just say, for example, let's say this, even if this wasn't true, let's just say that this was the situation. All of us pay our taxes, so there's a big pool of money, but then this thing comes up and says, hey, we need to pay to fix this road or improve this road, whatever it is. Whether you agree with that being the decision or not. It needs to happen. But we don't, as a town, actually have whatever dollar amount it's going to cost to do the thing we want to do. So in that situation, like, what are a town's options? If you don't have the money right now to do a thing that you need to do, what are your options?
Well, I mean, obviously, a bond. Like, you gotta pay down a bond over a long period of time.
But explain what a bond is. I don't think people who listen to this not everybody.
You're,
Bonds,
you're borrowing money.
Yeah, it's a loan.
Yeah.
From like this, I mean, bonds work in different ways. You can like government bonds, right? Like you're borrowing from the government. Or you can do like governments issue bonds where citizens can buy them.
Yeah, so
and guarantee the value of that bond.
the difference, so a bond is a loan. It's still provided by a bank, but the difference is the bank is not going to hold the note in totality. So like the bank is going to sell off a portion on the public market.
Right.
So like, I mean, Nolensville could go issue a bond, or could go to a bank and like get a bond for $1 million just to keep the numbers simple. The bank may sell like 50% of that on the public market, which just means like investors across the country are going to like put up the money to basically back it. So the bank can like move it off of their balance sheet.
And the interest rates on bonds are typically relatively low for two reasons. Number one, it's a cheap way for the government to get the money. But number two, it's because it's easier for the government who's getting that loan. For example, at the end of the day, citizens are paying for that. Citizens are paying for that. It's a reliable way to know you're going to get a return. Like the lower the interest rate, the more reliable.
It's a very low risk.
Super safe as an investor.
Yes, very low risk.
Okay, so that's one way is bonds.
Yep.
What other ways can you get the money to do that?
Tax increases.
Okay.
if you need more money, a government's going to increase your taxes. And you know, we also we hired Victor Lay. I like to call him V Slay because my man he's the GOAT, town manager, especially in Williamson County. But he pitched, and he told us, the whole board, this during his interview. He pitched a pretty significant tax increase for Spring Hill to pay for their exit off of 65 and all the infrastructure to get the major road over into Spring Hill. And he said he got very, very little pushback, if any. That they had a whole PR effort to pitch that, and no one pushed back against it. And a very significant tax increase. Again, it's a sunsetting tax increase, but it might sunset in 40 years. It's going to pay for what that road costs. And so we hired the guy that can do that. I am not on the side of raising taxes. It would take Victor justifying it as our only option for me to get behind it, because I do believe he knows he obviously knows what he's doing. So
is that it? Waiting. You can wait, right?
So yeah, there's debt, right, and then there's like taxation, so like just like public revenue, and then I think the third one is economic growth. So like economic growth still provides in taxation, in that like if your economy grows, there's more tax, there's a larger tax base, more commercial businesses, more residents, all those kind of things. But like that's probably the slowest.
It's the slowest, but I think it's got the most potential.
Yes. Yeah.
We have so much loss here from a spending perspective. Mm-hmm. Like, the easiest time to turn left especially onto Nolensville Road, is about 7:00 on a Friday night, because we're a ghost town.
Right.
Because once everybody gets home from work,
or on Black Friday, which is that's the best example. Like the easiest time to turn left in Nolensville is any time on Black Friday, where everybody is out shopping somewhere else. But so you have TIFs, you have the public-private partnership, which there is a very formal way of doing TIFs, where it's a government coming in and partnering with developers to do a road project, right? But there's also an informal way of doing that, to where like I think that like all four of us would agree would be allowing certain rights or granting certain rights to entice a private investment in the area, and then they have to follow not only your zoning, but they also have to follow your MTP plans of where the roads should go, what type of roads, what type of infrastructure upgrades, and then on top of that, you're charging impact fees that will go towards the infrastructure updates that the growth would have, like that their growth would have an impact on, right? And then we have road impact fees that Nolensville is small enough to, it doesn't matter where the development happens. You can pretty much spend those impact fees anywhere in town. It's only 10 square miles. Any development going anywhere is going to have some sort of an impact on any road in town. Like obviously aside from like a cul-de-sac in Summerlin.
Right.
And then you have your adequate facilities tax fund, which is for the same purpose as roads, except it's for things like Public Works Department, Fire Department, and now I just realized we'd have a third one where it's the fire impact fee, to where if you're bringing in growth, this formula calculates how much impact you're going to have on our newly established fire department, and then you have to pay a fee to combat that impact, right? So like the need that you will add, you have to quantify that and pay into the pot to grow the department to be able to service you properly. So there's a ton of ways you can fund government.
So of those things you just listed though, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sure you all will. Those are all one-time kind of fees, right?
Outside from what Chris mentioned, where it's like growing your economic base.
Yeah. Right.
That's the sustainable option, basically.
Right. So, but like adequate facilities tax or road impact fees, all those things. When a developer like gets a development approved and it's like a per house basis, right, or whatever it is. So like you say, build this house, there's a certain fee that for this house being built, I got to pay whatever it is, $1,000, whatever that number is. And that goes into that fund. That's that fee. And there might be 2 or 3 of those, but like, that's the idea, is it's a one time. When this house gets built, it pays this one time. So there's that, but that's like, again, other than like recurring tax revenue from the people who live there, whether that's through what they, pay in property taxes or sales tax, the portion that the city gets through like, commercial, which again, you mentioned, like the best times for traffic in Nolensville are basically any time that anyone else would be out shopping or going to a restaurant. Mm-hmm. That's when it's easy to get around here because no one's doing any of that here for the most part. So we've got recurring stuff and we have one-time stuff. And this is kind of where I wish there was like a visual aid coming from the guy who could probably make a visual aid for the show, but I don't have that energy. But my perception, and maybe Derek, you can kind of like fill in some gaps or even tell me if this is not true, is that for the most part, like those one-time fees, when like a neighborhood gets built, or it could be anything. It could be an apartment complex, God forbid. It could be anything. But when those one-time fees are collected, that kind of covers the impact that they have on our infrastructure for a set period of time. But a lot of the liabilities, the things that the town has to keep up with, are recurring liabilities that don't really go away over time in the same way the money goes away over time.
Right. Like if you look at Southern Land and Goodall off of Kidd Road, those two developments are pretty large. It's over 1,000, definitely over 1,000 units, like 1,100, 1,200 total units. That's a major contribution to our impact fees. Will that pay for Kidd Road to become 3 lanes or 4 lanes? No. Mm-hmm. So to put it in perspective, like that entire road would have to develop into neighborhoods to be able to pay for all of Kidd Road to become 4 lanes. Mm-hmm. That's how expensive it is. So it's a drop in the bucket. I mean, we're approaching our 30-year mark, and we've done 2 major road projects. We've realigned the intersection now at Clovercroft and Rocky Fork and Sunset, which isn't quite done yet. We're on phase 3. So 2 major road projects in 25, we're on our way to 30 years. That governments can't really afford to do all of these giant major road projects with the current style of development of sprawling neighborhoods and strip malls. That's just, you just don't generate enough revenue to do that.
Let's say that happened though. Let's say that like Kid Road, it all did develop into what you just mentioned, the hypothetical of it would have to develop into neighborhoods and everything to pay for that expansion. I'm not like, this is going to, I hate this. This is almost like an infomercial. Like I'm feeding you questions that are easy to answer that make a point that we probably all agree with, but like sometimes the truth just happens to go that direction. But let's say that all did pay for that expansion. You have that expansion that's in place and you have a beautiful 4-lane Kid Road and everyone can get where they're going. Would you, and this is all spitballing, we're not going to hold you to this, even though it's on the record. And we had you swear blood oath earlier, but like if it did pay for that, would there be, let's just say like the all these people that moved to those houses that now live in those developments, with the current setup of how Nolensville exists commercially, everything, would their property taxes combine with their like sales tax contribution, assuming that people aren't just, it's not like, this is like an old like church thing, like in the South, like where like people don't really like start going to church. It's just, they just go to a different church. Yeah. There's not like new people going to church. It's just they just go to a different one.
Right.
Assuming that no one from Nolensville is just moving to a different neighborhood where you're not really expanding your population base. Would their tax contribution contribute enough to the government's bottom line to pay for the maintenance of that road? That's more the question. I think that's more what we're running to now in town.
Yeah, so that's a tough one because roads are a forever commitment. There is no end in sight. It's, while we talk about if we're going to annex the rest of Kid Road or all of Williams Road or Clovercroft Road, those are forever commitments to maintain them. And so no. I mean, that's just the hardest math to do,
right? Because it could, right? There's some kind of
you can kind of bring it. You can give an example. So I have an example like so fire impact fee is designed to charge new growth for the impact that they will put on our fire department. Cool, like that sounds awesome in theory, right? So let's say I'm building 200 home subdivision. The town figures out, all right, well, your 200 home subdivision is going to produce 800 residents. Those residents have to pay a fee of to total $1 million of the impact that they will create, that we will have to upgrade our department in order to be able to service you and everybody else at the same level of service before you got here. So we pay $1 million. The town then turns around and says, all right, in order to service the subdivision, we have to buy a pumper truck. It's going to cost us $1 million. So I build a subdivision, 800 residents, $1 million. We have a pumper truck. Everybody's happy. 10 years down the line, that truck breaks. And we have to maintain that level of service. That truck is broken. That money has been spent. Well, now we have to come up with money to buy another one because we have to maintain that level of service. So it's like, obviously it's like that growth Ponzi scheme. Eventually what happens though is that like you do your tax increases, you do your tax hikes, and it's a perpetual, like everybody just keeps paying more and your house is worth more. So obviously you're going to be paying more in taxes, inflation over the years. It makes it manageable. What my biggest worry with Nolensville is that it went from nothing to blown out within 15 years. And all those things that we've acquired in the last 15 years, we're going to have to change and upgrade within a 15-year cycle. And eventually you are going to run out of space and growth and all that. And like all the replacement costs that we were putting on ourselves are going to be, instead of them being spread out over 50 years, they're going to be contracted to 15 years,
right?
And it's going to be
it's going to burden the system,
right? So it's going to overwhelm the system where you can't, like a tax increase won't be able to like be the band-aid. And it's like, okay, well, we'll do a tax increase here and we'll pay for these things, and then 10 years from now we'll do another one and then we'll pay for these things, and then you end up like California, 200 or 150 years down the line, you end up being California, New York, or Chicago, where it's like people realize, okay, well, tax increases have gotten too much, I'm getting out. It's like the life cycle of the tax increase.
Yeah.
Here it's just gonna happen really quickly, where it's like, well, tax increase now, then 2 years later we need another one and another one and another one, and it's gonna go from not a big deal to end in a very
I don't think people, there's a few things there. Like, I don't think people realize how reactionary our tax increases that have happened so far have been. So like, we've only raised taxes as a reactionary move to something that was decided 10 years ago, and it's like, oh like, we have to now play catch up.
Yeah,
like, we have to do this now because there's no other way to get this revenue in the door today or within like 24 months. And so, like, as much as I hate tax increases, and I like don't even think that that's something the town should have to talk about, like, they're going to have to talk about it within the next 12 months, to be honest with you, because if they don't make a significant tax increase, none of the growth we're talking about, the village, all this kind of stuff, is going to be built quickly enough to deal with the problems financially that the town's going to face in the next like 5 years.
But there is a way to deal with that, right? So like, it's obviously, I can't give you a guarantee that this is the correct answer, but the best shot is to create something where you're not only encapsulating all the revenue that we spend outside of town. So like, if we go like, let's say like, between the four of us, we have $1,000 a month that we spend on going out to eat. If we do everything in our power to encapsulate that $1,000 to stay here at all times, instead of going to Franklin or Brentwood or anything.
100%, Mike. But we're not gonna like. The point I was making is like, they're not going. Like, let's say that like we approve the zoning tomorrow, we're not gonna start like taking in dollars from a village for at least 5 years.
Yeah,
like if it's gonna take us 2 years to build out Kroger, and that's already approved, like. It just, the way the revenue cycles work and how long it's going to take all that to get built, like we're just not going to get there.
Well, but that's
so like we have money. Okay, like Nolensville has money in the bank, and I think this is the confusing thing for people. It's
$30
like,
million now.
Yeah, like if you look at our financial statements, people are like, "Well, we have so much money in the bank." Yeah, well, a lot of that money's like money we accumulated over the last 20 years, and we just never did anything with it.
Right.
Like we started Sunset Road. We got it through a few phases.
We reported 10 months instead of 12 months of
exactly. Like there's a lot there, but like the fact of the matter is like, and Derek, you kind of alluded to this, like with
I'm about to chime in.
I know, but the thought process of like, okay, like can these places pay for themselves? The answer is no. Like the way that the town is currently set up, it's like everything that we choose to build is insolvent the day it's built. Like it just is. That's just the way it is, because like the way everyone can look at Franklin and see how Franklin is built, but Franklin's also like extremely well planned to where like you don't have a neighborhood coming online without some commercial district too. Like there's like a lot of things that get approved at the same time, and then like Franklin times out when roads get built to go in line with those things, and like they also had a lot more land to work with. They also zoned themselves properly so that things could develop in a certain way. Like there's just a process that they went through, and I honestly think like we're going through that process as a town,
right?
But like we're doing it within our own like square mileage, right? But like Franklin at some point did do the wrong thing. Yeah. Like they let sprawl happen, and I think they realized at some point like
Cool Springs is the answer to that sprawl.
Yeah, like they were like, oh, like we can't do this again. Like we can't just keep allowing this to happen because it's going to bankrupt us.
I mean, once the county went in and they pushed for the expansion of 65. They put a bunch of exits in on 65.
Right.
They knew that like this is not going to work. We need this commercial base. We need the mall, not only the mall, but we need the employers. We need all the revenue we can get in this one congested area.
Yep.
And they put in like, I mean, how many exits did they put in? It was like McEwen is pretty.
Yeah, it's like it's at least Springs. Like 5 now.
Yeah, I mean,
like, there's been more.
Littered that whole area, and then that whole area is. So Cool Springs, the entirety of Cool Springs is designed and it's dialed in to be able to subsidize every subdivision that's built on the outskirts of downtown Franklin.
Right.
They didn't build those roads for a bunch of houses though. They built those exits for commercial.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And Derek, I want you to chime in, but let's take a break before you do, because
Okay.
I don't want to limit you.
Okay.
And I think you've probably got some good stuff to say.
I have a lot of things.
Exactly. So
I got
we
my
have-
phone out to
how
like
it starts.
take
It's
notes.
how it starts.
I see we have like a minute and a half on our timer, so I'm just gonna go ahead and stop now, and
Okay.
then we'll just let you go.
Okay.
Get back. All right. All right, we're back. And Derek said he's going to blow our mind with so many things. He's got so
All the
much to
things,
say.
yeah.
We got. So you got 26 minutes.
Okay, all right, I
You
got
can
you.
just we'll just let you go.
Well, first, I just want to say because I needed to get my bleep in. So it's like,
I'm writing it down now.
right? Yeah. Okay, we got the timestamp. I had to get my bleep.
Well,
seconds
Chris has got the monopoly.
You can't be on the pod and not get your bleep in.
Chris has the monopoly on the swearing so far. This both episodes we've recorded today. So we're good. All right.
The pool's warm. Just jump in, guys.
Thanks
I'm
for
excited
that.
to see what little icon you put over my mouth. Too.
I know.
Like,
Well, I can't make any. I don't want to spoil it.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we've talked a lot about taxes and sources of revenue. There was some conversation in our last meeting about kind of the inevitability of a tax increase. That now that we're transitioning into a full-time fire department and we want to get the police department their own building and we want to ramp up what Public Works has to work with, that there's this inevitable looming tax increase. But we're at 29 cents right now. Brentwood's at 29 cents. Franklin's at 33 cents. Now, there are other municipalities in our county that are much higher, but in my opinion, that is an admission that you didn't grow the right way. And Brentwood and Franklin,
Beautiful.
and Franklin, they grew the right way. And I don't even know if they knew they were growing the right way, but they also had the advantage of being off an interstate. We do not get that revenue. That's not a revenue source that we can have. So if we all admit that we're growing and we all admit that we need revenue, don't you want to grow the best way possible that all of the experts are saying? Here's how you should grow. Mm-hmm. So we hire TPUDC to tell us, here's how you should grow. This is the style of growth that is fiscally solvent. Do you realize they gave us a bunch of zones that have the industrial zone has residential in it, CD4C, CD4 residential in it. They gave us a bunch of zones that have residential and commercial aspects because mixed use is the way that you grow you grow in a solvent manner.
Yep.
And the Hamlet zone, it has CD4 in it because that brings a commercial aspect to a residential area. So it itself can be solvent.
I feel like they took where Nolensville is today. Like, I mean, let's just be honest. Like, TPUDC designs mixed use everywhere they go. Like, they believe mixed use is the way to go. But I feel like they also looked at Nolensville and they were like, here's what's left to develop.
Right.
Here's how you've developed so far, and heard a lot of like the financial struggles or financial like theories and philosophies that exist right now. And they were like, look, like, for you guys to like overcome what is going to, like, what is on the table, what's in your future, here's how you need to develop.
Right. And so why are we fighting that? When they come to us with a CD4 and a CD5 that are these beautifully designed mixed use zones, as the experts, and they say, we don't usually give density numbers, but we know you all like density numbers. So CD4 is going to be about 12. CD5 is going to be about 24. Mm-hmm. And our board thinks that's a number that we have the ability to manipulate. No. They designed the zone to work for about that density. There's a big difference in here's a control that you can move up and down and slide it and it still works. It doesn't work. If you drop it too low, CD5 is not buildable. If you drop that 12 on CD4, it's not buildable.
That was my point. So like, it's going to be the episode before this one. Obviously, we're recording a few episodes tonight, but I made that same exact point. What for me is an hour ago, for our listeners is going to be couple days ago. Yeah. It was like, those density numbers, they're not a right that we're granting. They're a visual, or they're like a numeric example of what we can expect
Right. And CD5, my favorite. So obviously Land Innovations is looking to develop in Nolensville a village parcel.
So Land Innovations, so just to like paint that picture, Land Innovations is Stevens Valley. They did Stevens Valley, which is phenomenal. The people that, so Rochford is,
Where's that?
It's
It's
like
over
between
towards
Fairview and Brentwood.
yeah.
So
Okay,
so the funny thing about Stevens Valley is that Stevens Valley is part of two counties. So it's on a county line. It's between Brentwood and Fairview. All the residential the entire residential aspect of Stevens Valley is in Williamson County,
And it's all single family homes.
it's all single family homes, and then the entire area that has commercial and multifamily is on a Davidson side of the development. And it's a road that's dividing the development. Part of it is mixed use multifamily that's on Davidson, because obviously they're going to get all their revenue.
Yeah.
And then all the traditional, and it's not traditional single family. It's small width, or it's narrow width lot lines, LE loaded product.
It's West Haven.
Yeah, it
looks
West,
and feels like West Haven.
But the developer obviously looked at the parcel and it split the county line.
100%.
yeah, because
And said like, I don't have to do anything on the zoning on Williamson. I can just build single family.
Right.
I don't have to get anything approved on Metro.
Because they want it all.
Metro-
I can just do commercial.
Yeah.
And so it's just like I can build one community with everything. It looks like I planned this out.
Dude, it looks okay. So I'm
beautiful.
gonna plug here. If you go on my business Instagram, Lucia Group, I made a bunch of reels like driving through. Like we went through the event in Stevens Valley when they first opened it up, and it looks like the thing that reminded me most of it, like, you know how like Full House from the 90s when it started, and you have those San Francisco like 3-story
Everywhere you look.
yeah, I mean, it looks like that. They're narrow houses. They're long. They're pretty, like, most of them are 3 stories
It's kind of
tall.
how Burkett Place is though when you first
Yeah,
drive
but
into
the feel that you're driving through it just feels so much different than driving through like Summerlin. Where Summerlin, it's like,
Sure.
Every time we record. Today I had to, like, I passed your house, and I'm like, I have to text them which address is it is, and then I'm like, oh no, like, because last time we recorded, I asked you which address. So
Every time someone comes here, I wonder how in the world they find our house. I actually wonder that. They don't know where I
same
live.
house.
I only found it because
house.
Mike's car was out front.
Oh,
Yeah, I saw the car, yeah.
So it's but like that, like, that's the difference. It's like if you zone it the right way, like if you build it the right way, it has that certain feel where it's just like you drive in and it just feels different. Where it's if you go for the bare minimum, you drive in and you're like, all right. So I know he lives on this street. There's 30 of these units. Which color was his brick?
Right,
'Cause it has to be brick.
Right.
So it's
So to finish the Land Innovations point, they're trying to build in Nolensville a core village parcel north of Darcy. And
north of Darcy, which is
Kroger.
right. So
the Kroger development across from Summerlin.
Put a visual map on that. So Kroger is going basically on the corner of Williams and Nolensville Road, and extends all the way down to Summerlin Drive, and then Land Innovations
Going north
of
from
that.
there. Right.
So if you're coming out of the high school down Summerlin Drive, what is a dead end is going to keep going on the right side or on the left side of the street.
Maybe like
Kroger.
does it include the Smuckers?
It could. This one doesn't. That's the next development that would finish it up to go all the way up to Old Clovercroft. But yes, so the road that goes down to Williams through Darcy with the roundabout and the Kroger and the kind of transitional village going north from there, there's a Land Innovations is trying to develop it. At CD5, the original CD5 as delivered by TPUDC, they could only get about 20, maybe 21 units an acre. So think
and
about
their
that.
allowance would have been 24.
Their allowance at 24, if we even if we adopt that as the number, they, because of the topography and the hillside and what they wanted to achieve for Nolensville,
Just the way it works.
they could only get to 20 or 21.
Because you have to cut in roads, you have to put sewer in.
And our board knows that, and our board chose 18. So the plan that all of the BOC has seen that we are not obviously showing to the public because Land Innovations doesn't want us to show it to the public. They only needed 20 or 21 to make this absolutely just home run of a plan for the town. it had some single family homes in this development, like
in downtown, and basically the new downtown of
like a downtown. Like I would be
you could
trying
live
to
in downtown.
I would be trying to buy one of those houses.
Sounds awesome.
Like that, they would be absolutely beautiful and in walking distance of a town square type development and school and Kroger and restaurants and all the things.
Sounds awesome.
It would be incredible. And our board, knowing they needed 20, said, nope, 18. We're going to 18. We're going to make it harder on you because we don't want any more people.
18.
We don't. Well, I had to. I mean, what am I supposed to do? Like, if I don't vote for 18, it's going to go probably lower. So, it is what it is. But that density number of 24 down to 18, I still think Land Innovations can like capitalize on a just baller village plan there.
So I heard, I can't remember who said it. Mike, you could probably tell me who said it. Someone on our BOC, wasn't you, has this idea that, because we're talking about where money comes from.
Oh, Kate Kortner.
Said that, that Kroger could pay for itself or pay for all these road projects.
Kate Kortner,
by itself.
So,
but
what's the quote though?
Yeah, what?
Like,
yeah.
the quote was like, so like there was Joel started talking about the inevitable tax increase. And then Kate said that, like, well, we don't know that we have to increase taxes. We can build all these roads in the future because we have a Kroger and the Publix coming in. And I'm sitting in this meeting and I'm like, I know what the numbers are. And the numbers are $500,000 a year in revenue to the town, not to the county, not to the state, just the town portion of Kroger development or the Kroger store is going to bring $500,000 a year to Nolensville. It's a significant amount of money. Our MTP, like, so the entire plan of all the roads by experts that design these roads, and they determine the size of the road, the layout of the road, and like how they should be planned out and when they should be planned out. The entirety of that plan is going to cost us like $235 million.
Well, Victor shortchanged us there. It's about $300 million.
Right. That's not including Nolensville Road because we're already hindering, or like we're already saying like Nolensville Road is going to get taken care of by the state.
Right.
So
and the one-way pair.
The one-way pair, right. So the one that we need the most, we're just gonna let the state take care of that. Everything else is gonna cost us, let's round it up, $250 million. Kroger brings in $500,000. And then I'm thinking through her thought process. I'm like, it's gonna take us 400 years. 400 years of Kroger being here, that's not spending a single penny of the revenue
on anything else,
and completely like just let go of the idea of inflation, right? Just like forget inflation, forget any downturns in the market,
right?
Any shifts in the marketplace, like don't worry about Amazon ever taking care of like deliveries and crap like that. Just put it in the time capsule of like $500,000 a year, $235 million to create this plan that there's no traffic and the infrastructure's caught up. 400 years from now, we're going to be golden.
Yeah, I just have to say, that's who you elected, Nolensville.
Yeah, congratulations. So we have a better chance, timeline-wise, we probably are going to invent teleportation before we can have Kroger pay for the traffic.
Flying cars.
Flying
cars.
I made this joke that it will take 4 times the amount of time that cars have been around for Nolensville to fix traffic if we're banking on Kroger to fix it for us.
I mean, it's just like, I just don't understand how like somebody can sit up there who has power and have not done the math or not had somebody in there.
You don't need to do the math though.
Not had somebody.
If you've got notes that someone else gave you that said this is what you need to do.
Like if you
do you need to do math?
If you have notes that
math is hard.
That give you like if you have notes that give you a number to vote on for density, like you have notes up there that say don't go above 4 or don't go above 12 or whatever it is. Like, how do you not have a number in terms of like what the fiscal ramifications are of the decisions that you make? Like, I'm not saying Derek is an elected member. I'm not saying that Derek sits up there every single week and knows exactly like what the fiscal ramification are to the dollar, because you don't.
No,
nobody does. Like we don't have.
There's a finance.
I know, but like we don't have the financial modeling in place. We're getting there. Like we're getting to where we have like some sort of a spreadsheet that can like you can plug in a few data points and it'll give you some things. But like we don't have the kind of like sophisticated fiscal modeling to where you can sit like you're in a board meeting at a company and you can be like, well, if we like lay off 10% of our workforce, it's going to like mean this for our investors, you know, like we don't do that. But like, I do think that you at least sit up there and vote knowing like, if we don't approve this, it's going to mean we raise taxes like 2 times,
a certain amount, or
3 times.
Generally, like this has an impact.
Like if we don't do this now, we're going to raise taxes 1 time. If we don't do this now, it's probably going to be like we need 3 tax raises to get where we need to be. And you know where we need to be.
Nolensville is not unique though in that we have an award-winning like finance department that is producing these annual budgets for the last 2 years. So no municipalities have that.
Right.
As far as like if you approve this many homes without any commercial, what's the overall impact? It's everybody's spitballing. Everybody's just like, you know, we're just gonna what way's the wind blowing?
But somebody has a spreadsheet they gave you.
Right.
But that's
the ultimate like number you get from that is a max population.
Right.
Yeah, I know. That's
which is an absolutely meaningless number.
Sure.
100%.
Like it's a meaningless number.
There are, so like I will say this, like as a pretty libertarian person himself, like I do take a stance that like I wish government ran more like business, but I also understand the nuance that is government, which is that it doesn't run like business. Like you aren't able to just like produce a product and then like when you see it like take off in the marketplace, you just throw fire behind it and like keep pushing it. And
you
like
are with zoning, you are.
Well, no,
mixed use. If mixed use works, throw all your money at it.
There are ways that you can run government like a business, but there are ways that it just completely falls apart.
Right, because you're bound by you're bound by service.
Correct.
You have to provide a certain level of service.
Correct, and you're also bound by things that are completely out of your control, which you are in business too. But like, you know, like there are ways business solve problems to make a bottom line, which is like they fire people.
Or
to me, firing people in a business is the same thing as like raising taxes. It's like it's a really negative. It's a really negative response to create a positive outcome. It's like we have to achieve something, so we're gonna like make this decision.
The worst part about the worst aspect for the government is that like Amazon can come in and say, well, giving you free delivery doesn't work, or giving you free returns doesn't work. From now on, you have to pay for your returns.
Right.
Well, government can't come in and say, you know what, like providing police services is a net loss. We're just gonna cut it out. You can't do that. You have to continue to perform. You can never downgrade your level of service.
Yeah. So like to Derek's point, it's like if we take on this road, we can't like decide one year that we're not going to take care of it. It's like we have to mow that every year.
Yeah.
Like
yep.
And so I do think that like I do think that well, I'll just say like I do think though that there are places that government could operate more like government though, or like a business, and they could look at the problems and say, okay, here are our revenue streams. How do we maximize those things? Which is kind of the point you're making, which is like, if you look at all of them, one, I don't think Nolensville does a great job with bonding projects. So like, and the meaning, like they've bonded the wrong projects in my opinion. So like we bonded a rec center that, like, I'll just be honest, because I'm a member of it, it's already at max capacity. They can't figure out how to like they added another weight room and it's already maxed out again within weeks.
Town Hall's
like,
the same way. So Town Hall is bonded. It doubles as a police station. There's zero chance we can expend our police.
Correct. And you look at every other municipality, and it's like their town center is like an old school or like some old dilapidated building that like nobody cares about. It's off the beaten path. And they just put up with that because that's not the kind of stuff that people want to see you spending money on. We, meanwhile, built like a cathedral in the middle of town
Tajma Town Hall
on a commercial property that could have like made a ton of money for the town with like taxes. And
can you imagine if we actually use the growth to our advantage?
Oh, I know.
Imagine if Land Innovations was going to build our police department.
Right.
If we said, you know what, Land Innovations, bring a PD in. We'll give you 30 units an acre. and you build us a police station.
Yep.
And they're like, okay, we'll do that.
They would come back and say, oh, we can't humanly build 30 units an acre.
It's not possible, right?
Can we please only do 24?
So how many acres is Land Innovations looking at?
Oh man,
like what is that?
30.
Okay,
it's
so
only 30.
30. It's 30 acres.
How many acres is?
It's 30 acres, and they want
Maybe 40.
Okay, it's 30
I thought it
acres,
was like 100.
maybe 40, and
It's not. I know. I'm not saying that.
and they want 20 units an acre.
I think the Blankenship parcel's 17, and so the other two south of that, it might be 25 total. It might be 30 total, but yes.
So it's 30 units on and 20 units an acre is what they want.
No, they want 20.
They want 20.
They can build.
It's
20.
around 30 to 40 acres.
So it's like 600 units, right?
And there's a stipulation where 50% can only be rentals.
Right, and we approve. We're approving 18.
The large multifamily product can only be a certain percentage of the residential.
But we approved 18.
Right.
What's the difference there?
The difference is 60 units.
Of course.
Like I'm just saying it's like think like this is again, Nolensville, you voted for these people. Like this is the kind of crap that makes no sense at all. We are going to hinder a developer to the point where they could possibly walk from that deal. Like that's my point.
This is what
like dollars and like numbers of units to Nolensville. It's like we're talking 2 units, 60 people, maybe 100. If you put 2 people per unit into the unit, it's like 120 people to the town population. Not that many.
But so like a lot of people
like
will
to
say,
dollars and cents when it comes to like investment in a property and a developer, that's like maybe a deal breaker.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Like,
I was
they
about to
won't
say
build
that.
it.
These people, Land Innovations, have done more homework than the whatever word you want to use to describe the people who voted against letting them just do what they want to do. They have done the math. They know the numbers. They know, like you said, that might seem small because the other side of the argument would be, well, if it doesn't really matter, why should the town get hung up on it?
Right.
So, because the town, not you necessarily, maybe.
No, him. Let's pick on him.
The town doesn't know what it's doing. The people who have a lot of money at stake,
you're right. I don't know what I'm doing.
Know what they're doing.
Right.
And it might be a deal breaker for them.
Yeah.
It's not a deal breaker for the town. And this is like my pet peeve with all of this is like we keep acting like we're like the belle of the ball all the time with these developments and these commercial developments, these big retailers, all these people that want to come into town. We don't get this opportunity forever, but we keep acting like we're just hot all the time. I'll write my own time down on this one, but like we're not. Like, no, I love this town, but we're not.
I think a great example of this is like, so my parents moved here within the last 6 months, and they moved into Burkett. They live on the Williamson County side, so they have a Nolensville address. They live in.
So they're good people.
They live in. I mean, they count.
They're not those crime people.
They count. They live in Nolensville proper, but like, I drive up to the north side of town a lot to see them and like drop my kids off and like whatever. And lately I've taken notice of a few new like stores and a few new establishments. There's a Dunkin' Donuts.
Heck
right?
Yeah, dude. I'm so excited about that one.
I know. And it's at a prime corner and all this kind of stuff. But like that whole development of Burkett and Nolensville Road, I think is like the prime example of like what Nolensville is like missing the mark on. And I'm sure lots of people will be like, yeah, but it's terrible. There's so much traffic and all this kind of stuff. Guarantee you that in like 2 years, Davidson County is going to pour a load of money into into the infrastructure on their side of that corner.
Right. But it's also like Davidson
Guarantee
County.
You. Davidson County is going to take in all the tax revenue that comes from stuff like that they approve, and they're going to just like dump money on it.
I made this point in my public comment. It's so all the growth that's happening on all our borders, like Cool Springs, Davidson County, Burkett area, Rocky Fork, they're pushing all that growth upon us, and we're like they're going to use our roads to pass through within each other.
Yep.
And we don't see any benefit from that. And not only that, but TDOT is literally like they're widening Nolensville Road to that corner. they're stopping on a county line.
Right.
I did, like, so we have like a minute 50. So I wanted to close out this segment with like a lot of people, or like the biggest argument you can possibly propose against what we said is like, it's not the town's job, it's not our job to make sure that the developer gets to maximize their parcel. Like, we shouldn't be looking out for developers, we should be looking out for other things as well. I do agree with that, until you consider the fact that the development of these parcels in the triangle is of huge benefit to us, because they're literally going to run a road from Williams to Clovercroft that will parallel Nolensville Road, that will hook up to either a bypass or a one-way pair that will give us a secondary option for north or south commute. Like, this is hugely beneficial to the town. The town, like, we can't build this road by ourselves. We cannot physically go in and tell the property owners, like, hey, on the off chance that we actually have millions and millions of dollars to spend on this, we're going to seize your property, cut it in half, run a road through here, and connect to this other road. Like, this is a big benefit.
We
to
need
the town.
to stop talking about investment in Nolensville as if the only people that make that investment are citizens who live there and pay taxes, because they're not. Developers also choose to invest money in here to build infrastructure and to build developments, and that is just as important as the citizens who live here and have to deal with it after the fact.
Right.
But let's drop some arbitrary density numbers down to
18?
disincentivize as much as we can.
I do think,
Makes sense, right?
At the end of the day, I mentioned this before you walked in our episode that aired 2 days ago. Look at that meta. But so I 18, I don't have a great feeling about 18, but I don't have a really bad feeling about 18. I do view the 18 as one of those middle grounds where both parties walk away kind of unhappy. I do think that the 18, there's other things that you can maximize density with other than density number. So if you're going to stick with 18, you can do other things to kind of maximize that land, like hilltop slopes, like right of way, green space requirements. You can adjust. Like, if the density is an answer to an equation, you can adjust the equation to get the answer that is viable.
Yeah.
All right, we're back. Mike said he's going to go hard at Derek.
I didn't say that.
No, he said.
Hey, me?
So yeah, so like,
See you guys.
we're this is our third segment with Derek here. Like, I think that like a good way to kind of close out our first guest appearance, like literally last second, like we called you were en route home, and I was like, you want to just come by and talk, because we don't have the capability of like dialing you in. I think it would be cool to talk about like what your plans are going forward. Like, obviously you went from being mayor, which, as insignificant as everyone tries to make that, like, you did carry a lot of responsibility. Like, I mentioned this in the prior episode. Like, if you're mayor, when you're mayor, you get blamed. Like, every time somebody's stuck in traffic, they go on like, screw the mayor. Like, the mayor screwed us up.
Yep.
Like, you went from being responsible or perceived responsible for all these things to kind of taking a seat back. I noticed that you got your old chair back, Boma days, like all the way in the back, like all the way on the side, and being able to, like, I was at the meeting early in the week, and I saw the old Derek Adams. Like, I saw somebody that was able to be more upfront and more forward with like your responses and your ideas.
Yeah.
So what does Derek Adams' 2 remaining years on that board look like?
Yeah. So commissioner role is definitely different than the mayoral role. You feel a sense of responsibility to be a uniting force, to be a voice of reason, to represent the town regionally. I mean, there's a lot you feel with that title. And, you know, my favorite 2 calls, I have 2 specific calls that stand out to me I received on my town phone. One was a street light was out. And
Did you go and change it yourself?
Yep, did that. And another was a dog was barking too loud. And that happens when you have that title and your name is on the website as the mayor, and they see that number, they're going to call that number, they email you, they will contact you because you have the title. And it doesn't matter that we're a weak mayor system and it is a ceremonial role. most people don't know that. And so there's a lot of weight that comes with it. Now that that's not the title and I don't have that title anymore, you're just going to get unapologetically me. And that's what my wife is my biggest advocate to try to push me. She says, you need to be a savage. That's what she tells me. Just fight for your positions. Don't let anybody get away with anything that is based on feelings. Everything I'm fighting for is based on expert analysis, data, facts, and population control and density numbers are based on how people feel.
Right.
And I'm trying to balance our budget long term. And so you're going to get the Derek that wants that. You're going to get the Derek that no longer has the responsibility of being a regional representative for Nolensville. You're just going to get Derek that's fighting for his positions.
And
so
that was my favorite Derek. Like obviously we became friends when you were an alderman with Boma, and it was like you against the entire board that was very united, minus you, and the entire town staff at the time was very united with the board, and then they were all kind of going against you. So it's always been my favorite Derek Adams, the person that just fights for something that's right, not necessarily something you want, but something that you kind of get to wanting it because it's the right thing. I'm just curious to, like, being a commissioner, obviously different in the responsibility. Outside of this density thing, and I want to bring up the beer thing. That was your Boma thing, but outside of the density zoning thing, what is the next thing? Because obviously, or hopefully, like I pray, we're done with the zoning thing within at least the first half of this year. Like, what's the next thing for you?
So before I answer that, I do want to say I love the reason that Mike Lushek got back on Facebook was the Mary Cassatt drama. I just have to call that out. That's kind of like the catalyst of how Mike and I became friends.
I was your white knight.
So spoiler alert, I wasn't going to bring this out until well after the zoning. I don't want this to be part of the zoning. But a big thing I want to fight for, that if any road in our town ends in a cul-de-sac, it's a private road. I don't want our town to pay for that because I know that's insolvent. I know that cul-de-sacs are a net loss. They are a drain on the town's budget long term.
Right.
And so
it's a public driveway basically.
Right. So if a builder is building a cul-de-sac, those homes on that cul-de-sac are paying for it. I think that should be a policy nationwide, that every government that is struggling financially should not be paying for cul-de-sacs because, like you said, they're large driveways. And additionally, I think neighborhoods that are one giant cul-de-sac that have one connection to Sunset or one connection to Nolensville or one connection to Rocky Fork, those should be considered big cul-de-sacs. Now, if there's not a neighborhood next to them and they have a connection here and a connection there and a connection there, but they haven't connected yet, those are future connections, right? But if they build it in a way that it can't connect, those should be private roads, and the town should not be paying for them anymore because we know what sprawl does to a town.
So I'm probably wrong on this. There is a subdivision going in between Winterset Woods and Nolan.
It's like Thunder Ridge or something.
Ridge, or it used to be called Thunder Ridge Drive. I think it's called Sinatra now.
Sinatra,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
That was originally pitched as a private, what
a naming convention.
I know, right?
But that was originally pitched as a gated community, right? And that's the way you do private roads. You gate them, and like Governor's Club, every single square inch of road in Governor's Club gets funded by the HOA because it's gated. The town doesn't take care of that. So that was originally pitched as a gated community. It no longer is, right?
Right. They decided against the gated part, and they did leave connections south, east, and west.
Like a stub out.
Yeah. And even there was the landowner to the east even came in and was like, I'm never selling my house. You don't need this stub out. And we built it anyway. Because again, 60 years from now, if that does develop, we want that connection.
And there's space between them and Nolan Mill where you can have an infill developer that connects all three.
That's right.
Right.
So yes, connectivity to me is the next big thing I want to tackle, but it's well after zoning ordinance. And again, cul-de-sacs are the enemy. And I've realized that, and all the research I've done in 4+ years now, sprawl, strip malls, cul-de-sacs, like learning what bankrupts towns long term, and seeing Nolensville doing all of those things repeatedly
on an expedited rate,
thinking that it's the right way to go, and thinking that it's good to build sprawl, strip malls, cul-de-sacs. We're doing it as fast as humanly possible, and we're trying to make our zoning ordinance only build those things. It's mind-blowing. That's literally the recipe for disaster for a municipality, and that's what we're doing. So I'm doing my best to stop that.
Yeah, and then my last type of point, just talking to you in like a public forum type of thing. I remember, like, obviously we've known each other for like 4 years now. Like, we used to have conversations, usually around a beer, talking about how insane the beer ordinance argument was.
Yeah.
Where you ran for alderman on the premise of changing the beer ordinance,
right.
and the argument was always like, show us where we're lacking, like proving a negative. And then, like, we're far enough away from that now removed to where we can actually show the negative from back then. Like, as soon as you lift the ordinance, like, Mill Creek Brewery is thriving. Like, me and Loretta's, like, formerly known as Birdie's, has beer. Wings to Go has beer. Happenstance has beer. Like, all these people, like, that necessarily didn't have the means to kind of stand up and ask for the beer ordinance to get changed. They're all like took advantage of the fact that it did get changed. So like right. I always smile when like I walk into like a place that just applied for a beer permit and now they're selling beer, and like, kind of think back to like Larry Feltz or Tommy Duggar fighting you in those meetings, talking about like, well, show us where we're lacking. Show us where somebody wants a beer permit and they can't get it.
Right.
It's like, show us the negative, prove us the negative, and now it's like 3 years later, 2 years later, and it's like, here it is. Like, this is like, people would sell beer if you gave them the choice, and
right.
people will make money.
Yeah, I think that like what's interesting is, so those guys all made that argument for years and years and years, and I don't think that they ever took into account how much outsiders look at the current and existing marketplace as a predictor of what they are able to do. So like my argument to like the mayor back when I was like involved with brewery and stuff was always like, well, nobody's ever going to come beating down your door like saying like, hey, government, fix my problems, right, as a business owner. Like,
you
like
just don't.
Like, the government's the last place that business owners want to turn to have to like deal with a problem. Like, they look at the marketplace and they just see like opportunity or the lack thereof. That's it. So it's like, you look around, like if you're like prospecting a new town or a new location, it's like you're gonna look at what already exists there and you're gonna say like, oh, like I'm Chick-fil-A, great, there's a McDonald's, cool. Like, obviously I can like I can get away with this here for these various reasons. The zoning exists, like the traffic exists, like all those kind of things. Like, if you're a brewery owner and you're walking into like a place that's never had a brewery and doesn't even know what to do with it, it's like you wouldn't think to like ask those questions.
It doesn't make your prospect list, and you're prospecting, and it doesn't make your list. Right.
It's that goes back to what I said in the last segment, which is the idea that like any kind of like business owner or like commercial developer or whatever it is, they don't need to like go talk to the government to find out the government is inhospitable to their business model. So proving that like someone won't come here, you're never going to get someone who came and talked to you about it, because it's too easy to just go somewhere else.
If the government, like, I mean, going back to the beer model piece of things, like no restaurant that just wants to sell beer but like is going to run up against like the food percentage or anything like that, they were never going to come to the government and say like, hey, like this is an issue for us. They would just look at all the other restaurants in town and be like, well, they can do it for this reason, but we don't have the same model, so like it will never. Like, also, they'll never approve us.
Also, 3 miles away, there's another county where we can just do it. So let's go there.
And to your point, Daniel, like if Nolensville, honestly, like if Nolensville just got rid of like the percentage altogether and was just like, you can sell beer in our town, As long as you come to us and get a permit, you can sell beer in our town, which is kind of what Nashville does. Like, you'd be surprised how many places actually would sell beer. Like, think about how many salons we have that are high end. All of a sudden, they would have like a male clientele that they would open up a chair in their salon that's just for men to get like a shave and like a haircut, and they would have a beer.
So two things. I got to shout out Ariana that cuts my hair, Misfit Concepts in Lux. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
In the Hillside Center.
Yeah.
I drink a Mill Creek, a Little Darling there.
There you go.
Before every
is it
beer.
a legal one? Is it?
I don't know.
They give it to you, right?
It's free. Yeah, it's definitely free.
Oh, it's free. If it's free,
And she's awesome.
It's legal.
Yeah.
But also, I just fun fact: Chris Going at a BOMA meeting in 2017, 16, 17.
Maybe. Yeah.
Talking to the board. I watched you get talked down to like a toddler by the current BOMA. I was sitting there listening to that, and I told you outside, had no idea who you were, had never talked to you
How
before.
we met.
We're walking outside, and I tapped you on the shoulder. I was like, hey, sorry you went through that. That was brutal. I'm going to run for alderman. I'm going to fix it. And you were like, cool, man. Like, all right, great. Little did I know I would win my first election, and the beer ordinance was the thing, and it's fixed, and you know.
You know what? I'm still holding it like against you and you. So when we first like became like a group of friends, like, or not necessarily a group of friends, but like when we first kind of like got into the same circle of like acquaintances, and we started to talk about town stuff, you came out with 615. You gave him the first 12-pack.
You're still salty about that?
He like rubbed that thing in my face for like a solid.
To be fair,
posting selfies with it.
Daniel probably had one before Derek did.
Oh,
But he snapped. But he wasn't rubbing it in my face.
Yeah, that was
true.
that was the like.
I keep thinking on the down low.
You work at the company. You're drinking the first beers. Like I was the first non-person.
It's true.
Yeah.
In the company. Yeah.
Well, so to kind of circle back around to the what we started this conversation, which is where does the money come from and what pays for anything? After having this conversation, and I haven't actually honest. This is honest. I haven't arrived at this level of opinion until I heard what was said today. The whole like concept of build roads, not density. I have a really hard time now believing that the people who say those kinds of things even themselves believe that's actually like something you can do.
Well, like the counter to that is generate revenue, don't raise taxes.
Right.
Like, it is, you know.
But it seems so like which roads? Like
Right.
tell me what roads to build. What roads do you want us to build? Not dense. It's just, again, I said non sequitur earlier. Those two things don't even connect. Like, other than build density. Again, this is the whole point of this show. Build density so commercial developers find it viable that they'll bring commercial in to generate the commercial tax revenue that will then pay for the roads that you want to scream about.
Right.
Like that doesn't go on a poster though. You can't put that on a piece of plywood.
I honestly think the most hilarious thing about that little like slogan during the election, like build roads, not density, is that the inverse is not true.
Yeah.
So like,
right.
like
Oh, it's true.
like the inverse of build roads, not density is not true. Like if you, or just the thought process that like if you just got rid of density, that you could build roads.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Right.
It's you're not making a choice.
yeah, it's like it's not a choice between roads and
You're not
density.
spending money
It's-
on building density,
right.
foregoing building roads.
It's not like we have like hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank, and it's like the government's like, well, we're going to invest this in building apartment complexes. It's like,
Well,
no, like we're just choosing how to like zone, and the zoning is going to bring with it certain revenue consequences or like successes.
There's a
yeah.
The
There's a-
entire
go ahead.
BOC would vote unanimously to fix every road. build new roads.
Yeah.
We would build a bypass, the bypass. We would build the bypass. We would build the one-way pair. We would build roads connecting this thing to that thing.
Yeah.
And who's it to what's it. And all the places everybody could drive, and all their merry drives and all the greatest and no traffic of any time of day. It would be great. But we can't afford it.
Right.
Like, we have to have revenues.
I think you had referencing the meeting.
It would be Whoville. It would be Whoville. That's what I was trying to get to.
But referencing the meeting, you had like a very, like, to me it was comical because I know you and I can kind of understand your thought process in the moment. It was very off the cuff. Like, Kate was talking about building all these roads, and then I can like almost see your mind snapping. And you just came out like, with what money? Like, there's no money. You're talking about things that cost like hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have any money. And then that's kind of the thing. Like, Chris, I think you nailed it on the head. Like, it's like, build roads, not density. Like, we're not spending any money on building density.
Right.
Like, we're just allowing other people to invest in our town so we can get the money to build the roads.
Right. Yeah, I don't think the argument has ever been we don't want to build roads.
Right.
It's just at what point?
At
what point and how do we fund them?
You can kind of get technical. Like, I don't want to build roads. I'd rather build streets, right? So
sure.
something that's enjoyable for everybody. Like, you don't, like, nobody wants 840 to drive down like the middle of our historic district. But I would much rather take one-way streets and a grid system throughout our entire town than like a 5-lane highway that with a median that divides it, because then it becomes like a car-centric thing where everybody
a 5-lane highway at 25 miles an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
That is the absolute wrongest way to build a road.
I have to say, like, and this is more just like a tongue-in-cheek kind of commentary that I've had in my mind. I haven't said this out loud anywhere, but
Oh, crap.
the podcast.
But start right.
Here we go.
The podcast has been like on a break the last few weeks, and we've had our conversations kind of offline here and there, and new BOC is in order, and like their first meeting was coming up, and then like the first meeting happens, and all this and it's exactly what I thought in my head was going to happen, which is like a whole lot of nothing. And I just kind of feel like part of me, I guess the only thing that did happen was like there was this kind of like nice kind of foreshadowing of how the new members are going to push things and what their agenda is and how they just don't get it. They don't get it. And so part of me just really like wants for you, and this is the tongue-in-cheek part, really, really wants for you to just say like it.
I told you. I told you.
No,
Called it.
Yes, of course you're gonna have to bleep this. Come on, like it's a rant. Like I just want for you to say like F this. There, I'll bleep myself.
Thank you.
Like you guys don't get it, and so like let's just give them what they want. Just like let them run it how they see fit. Let them like completely fall on their faces. To me, it's like dealing with children. Like sometimes your children just refuse to like listen to your guidance, and you just have to let them do the thing.
Yeah.
And like completely learn and learn from the mistake.
But it's almost exactly.
And I really want to get it. Part of me, I don't really want this, but part of me kind of wants it. Like I want to get like 12 months down the road, and for them to like have disapproved a bunch of projects from major developers.
You want to get the proof of concept.
Yes, and for them to see like, oh, like we really, really messed up.
Here it is.
Like we really messed up. Like we should have played ball with that developer. We should have played ball in that development, because what is coming in the door the second or third time around on that parcel is a Hardee's.
But the issue is that
drive through only Hardee's.
And I'm saying this because it's like we don't know, because we didn't pay attention back then. We don't know what came through on that parcel that Hardee's is going into now.
But the issue is that you're
what
too
came
right.
through the door that was asking to build on Nolensville Road 15 years ago.
Right.
That they said that BOMA said no to. That's now going to be a Hardee's.
But the issue is that you're too right. You're too correct in terms of like it is going to get bad.
Music to my ears. I'm too.
And it is exactly like dealing with children, to where like obviously like we all care about the town. We're spending like, this is our like for me or for us talking about this town stuff. We obviously care a great deal about it, and it's exactly like dealing with kids. There is an aspect of like, your kid's about to touch the burner, let him touch the burner, let him learn the hard way. But there's also the aspect of like, your kid's about to do something that's going to detrimentally change the course of their entire life.
Sure.
You have to step in at one point.
Which is why we can't stop talking about it. But at the same time, part of me is just like, are you really that crazy?
It's exhausting.
We're touching the burner right now with Southwalk and Market Square.
Right. Yeah.
Those are
that's a
two
good one. Yeah.
beautiful master plan mixed use developments that would have been awesome additions to the town. Both of them got lotted out. Both of them are going to develop individually as little tiny parcels. We'll see what they end up with. That is the direct result of the town fighting mixed use and saying, we don't want any apartments in this town. I think there's a pretty famous quote in a former PC in a previous PC meeting that was, "That's not Nolensville."
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but I want to be inclusive to all lifestyles and all ages and all races and all lifestyles. If whatever lifestyle you want to live, I want that to be available in Nolensville. And that's the opposite of how we have been in the past. And I hope our future is not the same. I hope we find a way.
That's a good way to put it.
I don't ever want to think of Nolensville as being like this like blip in time. And so like there's just like, this is Nolensville, and then it's like anything that's built from that point on is what Nolensville is. I want to think of Nolensville as this like ever changing thing, that it's like the DNA of what Nolensville exists as is like, we are this like small town community, which is the people that live here care about each other and invest in each other. And you invest in your neighbor. Right. You invest in your neighborhood, you invest in your neighbors' lives. Like there's a community aspect to that, which is like, you care about those that are around you, you care about and that permeates out beyond just your neighborhood.
Whether or not you live in a single family home.
Correct.
Yep. You can live in anything.
But like what doesn't like to me like signify Nolensville is like the size of the house you live in, because like does a person who lives in Summerlin whose house is over 7 figures look down on the person who lives in Stonebrook?
Yes, I do. I'm just kidding.
Those peasants.
Yeah. We gotta wrap it up.
Yeah.
Derek, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for letting me literally crash the party.
I hope they just completely drag you online.
Oh, they will, but I don't care. This is Commissioner Adams.
I honestly can't wait for the next BOC meeting, because we're literally going to hear that you were on a podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's how small our town is.
Yep. Yeah. That's a small town charm we love.
Nobody listens to us.
Yep. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time, and we'll hear you next time on Small Town Charm. Bye for now.